I just wanted our children, particularly children in marginalized communities, to know that they can be an advanced practitioners, or, they can at least know what an advanced practice nurse is. They can say, well, I want to be a nurse practitioner.
Hello, everyone. I'm Angela Rosa DiDonato.
And I'm Marian Leary.
And you're listening to Amplify Nursing, a Penn nursing podcast supported by the Panola Fund for Innovation in Nursing.
Amplify Nursing features nurses who are leading the way in science, policy, and innovation.
Our guests defy stereotypes, define practice, and disrupt convention.
We highlight the breadth and depth of nursing influence on society by amplifying nurses who are pushing boundaries and breaking down barriers to build a new paradigm.
Today on Amplify Nursing, we talk with Dr. Scharmaine Lawson, a nurse practitioner, entrepreneur, and the creator of the House Call course. Dr. Lawson has been meeting the needs of patients and practitioners in New Orleans since the early 2000s. The aftermath of Hurricane Katrina in 2005 left a profound need for care that Dr. Lawson was able to provide through her home care service. A consummate champion of the profession, Dr. Lawson has developed the NOLA the Nurse children's book series to teach children about advanced practice nursing. In this interview, we talk about the book series, the importance of role models, and Dr. Lawson's adventures in nursing.
Dr. Scharmaine Lawson, thank you so much for joining us today. I am so super excited to talk to you about your work.
Thank you for having me.
Can you give a little bit of background on the work that you do, how you came into nursing, and sort of set the stage?
Sure. I'm always hesitant to say when I started in nursing. So let's just say things got really heated for me in nursing in 2004. That's when I was a nurse practitioner. I had been a nurse for about 10 years prior to that and became a nurse practitioner in 2000 and moved back to New Orleans from Nashville, where I got my MSN, and decided to, see how things were here back at home since I was originally from here. And worked a little bit for some local physicians. And then finally in 2004, I was approached by a local physician who was going to be retiring, and she wanted me to take on her house call practice. And I said, well, sure, because at this point I had done just about every specialty in nursing. So house calls or home health wasn't so far-fetched. The only difference was I was actually going to be the boss instead of being an employee. So I said, sure, this will be something new for me. And, lo and behold, it turned out to be a really, really nice job security for me in lieu of Hurricane Katrina. And so when Hurricane Katrina hit, that's when my life dramatically changed. My house call practice picked up, and we went through a lot of different changes overall. So in a nutshell, that's kind of where my nursing career took me over the years until today.
So I'd love to hear more about the work that you did during Katrina. Could you talk a little bit about that time and what it is that you did to help the residents of New Orleans?
So yes, I returned to New Orleans after Katrina, which occurred in August of 2005. And I returned to the area in October of 2005. I, like most residents here in the city, had evacuated. And I was gone for about a month until I decided to come back to the area because I had several of my patients who were beginning to return to their homes here in NOLA in New Orleans, and they needed health care. Once I returned, I realized that, this area it was just a lot more decimated than I envisioned on TV. It's one thing when you see the pictures and images on TV, and it's a whole entirely different thing when you're actually working on the ground. And so when I returned, my practice, because I was one of very few providers who had returned, my practice grew from 75 to 100 to over 500 within 2 months. And that let me know there that, there was indeed a need in the area. And it was something that I was really glad to be able to be a part of. The name of the practice is NOLA Central City Clinic. That's the name of the practice. And the house call course is something I started in 2008. And it is a course that teaches other healthcare providers how to start a house call practice in their area. And from that course, I also have books. And up until, of course, March of this year, we were offering live courses. Right now, they're all online and in webinar form. And what I do is I walk each provider through the beginning of starting a house call practice all the way to the maintenance of a house call practice, because everybody who's in business knows that it's one thing to open a practice and get it started, and an entirely different animal to keep it feasible and making money or being profitable. So that's what my course does. And we have been doing that now since 2008, and we've trained over 600 providers from across the US.
And how did you learn how to run a business? Is that something you learned on the fly? How does that work? Because as a nurse, there are a lot of folks who want to start their own businesses. They're not sure how to do that. And so it'd be helpful if you could talk a little bit about how you learned how to successfully run a business.
Sure, and that's a good question. And I will say that I do not have a degree in business. And I did not really have a lot of people to help me. And that was really the impetus for me starting the house call course, to help other providers who wanted to start their own practice, because I knew of the difficulties I faced when I was getting my practice started. It was extremely hard. I really had limited resources, especially because once things really got going, we were also faced with recovery after Hurricane Katrina. So I pretty much had to learn a lot of things on the job, or as they say, learn on the fly. And it was uncomfortable, and I made a lot of mistakes. And then at the same time, because of the national, I guess, exposure I got from being on some of the news stations, I started to have a lot of people contacting me to say, well, how did you do this? And how did you do that? So I decided to collect all of the information that I had learned to get my practice up and running and to get it successfully going, and start the house call course. So to answer your question again, to go back to the answer, is that I really had limited resources. So what I did was I just did research. I called a few people, maybe a handful of people that I personally knew who had a private practice, not necessarily a house call practice, but a private practice, who were nurse practitioners, just to see, well, how does this work? Should I get a biller first? Do I really need a CPA? Okay, are you in a state whereas you need a physician? If so, what's the difference between LLC? What's PLLC? These sorts of things. So I heavily relied on my small network of friends who were gracious and so willing to give me information to help me get started. And I learned everything that I know now just on the job, and just talking with a few healthcare providers who were willing to help me out along the way.
Have you now trained many nurses and nurse practitioners to run their own house call businesses?
Yes, I have. And they've all been trained through the house call course.
Does your course only train nurses, or do you do other healthcare providers?
Yeah, it's everyone, and it's not just actually healthcare providers. I've had home health administrators to come. I've had PAs, physician assistants, to come, because they've just wanted to help their community, particularly rural areas, whereas there's a shortage of healthcare providers. And I've had quite a few of just home health agency administrators to come and say, we want to add a house call arm to our home health agency. Can you help us do this? How do we do that? How do we hire nurse practitioners in the community to now work with us and see some of our patients who need primary care? How do we add that arm onto our business? And so, to answer your question, it's not just primary care or healthcare providers. I also have other administrators and also PAs and other healthcare providers to come through the course.
And how has the home visiting area changed now that we're in the middle of a pandemic?
Oh my goodness, it has changed dramatically. It really has. And right now, I have only a few patients who I actually visit in the home. Most of them would prefer that I not come, and that's okay. We are still being able to get paid for virtual visits from some of the insurance companies. So it's been working okay, but it's been tough. It really has been tough. The coronavirus really totally changed how we've had to provide primary care. And now, again, I do visit some of the patients in the home, but now we are pretty much telemedicine in a lot of respects. We are doing telemedicine more than we've ever done before. And for those patients who just are not tech savvy, they're just not able to do a video call. We in some cases will do telephone call and that sort of thing, but it's totally changed. And because of the coronavirus, we've had to also pivot as a business and decide, well, are we going to still do this 100% of the time, or are we going to add different functions or other means, revenue streams to the practice? And these are some other things we've had to add. So I've had to do more webinars, teach more healthcare providers through the house call course. I've put out the policy and procedure manual for the house calls. I've done that. And I've had to do some other things to, again, have another revenue stream with the business, because Corona has totally changed how we deliver primary care, especially for the seniors.
And do you think post-Corona, you'll continue to keep up with those changes, or how will that? Have you even thought about what the future would hold once there's a vaccine and hopefully things start to settle down?
I have debated for a while if I am even going to continue doing in-home visits because of the virus. As you know, I do have small children, at home, so that's a factor, as well as far as whether or not I will continue. And then overall age population, most of them have not wanted me to come, and that's fine. It's understandable, because they are, of course, the most vulnerable. So it has changed considerably from where we used to be as far as the volume. We really, we weathered the storm literally with Hurricane Katrina, but that's different. This is a more invisible enemy, and it's attacking the very population that we serve. So it's made us just really do some long, hard thinking about the future of this, and if it's going to all be primarily telemedicine. Are we going to now add a cash arm? Are we going to do maybe a nonprofit arm? So we're looking at various things to shore up the business. And honestly, I'm not sure where the future is, but I know for sure that I will be involved in primary care. And now I'm working on my psych NP, and I will be adding psychiatrists as well.
I'd like to pivot a little and talk about your animated book series, Nola, the Nurse. Could you talk a little bit about what that series is and also how you came up with the idea and started it?
Sure. So Nola the Nurse is actually it's a company that I started back in 2015. And I've, for me, my background is I've always written stories, I've always written poetry. So just being creative is something that I naturally do. Well, when I adopted my daughter, I began thinking, I want her to have a library. And, more specifically, I'd like her to have a library of books about advanced practice nurses, so she can know what mommy does. And I began looking and doing some research and trying to find books that really spoke to the role of the nurse practitioner on a children's level. And more importantly, I began to look for books that had children that had some melanin or some color to them, because it's important. I did my research and I found that very few kid lit books have children of color in them. So I said, I not only want to make a book series that talked about the role of the APN, that's your NP, CRNA, your nurse midwife, but I also want to have a book series that's culturally sensitive. And so NOLA, being short for New Orleans, Louisiana, Nola the Nurse was born, and she's a 7-year-old girl who is excited about life, and she loves her mom, and she decides that, I think I want to be a nurse practitioner like mom, because she goes to the home to visit children and I to visit patients, and I think I want to do that. And of course she can't take care of real people yet, so she says, I want to take care of sick baby dolls. And so all her friends call her and say, hey, Nola, come take care of my baby doll. And so she goes to their homes on her bike and she takes care of the sick baby dolls. But what she discovers in each home is that it's a different culture that she explores and finds in each home, just like a real world. When you go to someone's home, it's a different culture. Some homes you have to take off your shoes. Some homes, especially here in New Orleans, you have to eat a bowl of gumbo. All right. So, she discovers different cultures in different countries when she goes to these homes. And so that was the whole premise of me starting the book series, is that I wanted children to have an introductory level on what an APN is. Can we get our 4-year-old to say nurse practitioner? Can we get them to say that? That's what I wanted. And I also at the same time wanted to foster cultural sensitivity. So we have the book series, and we have a big 6-foot mascot that we were taking to the schools pre-corona to do little shows and, dances and talk with the kids, let them hear a heartbeat and just teach them the importance of washing hands. We were doing this before corona because that's what nurses do, right? So all those little things, I just wanted our children, particularly children in marginalized communities, to know that they can be an advanced practice nurse, or, they can at least know what an advanced practice nurse is. They can say, well, I want to be a nurse practitioner, or, start becoming familiar with the terms. And so now it's just grown, and we have 17 books, coloring books, and we're not animated yet. We're looking at some things, and we were really on the cusp of doing something really big. But of course, Corona came, and so we've had to change a little bit with that. But we are certainly looking at being animated sometime in the near future.
Yeah, I was looking at your website. I so very much love the mascot and the toy line. I mean, I'm a huge fan of nurses as storytellers. And so when I saw this, I was immediately drawn to it. And the representation, not only of advanced practice nurses, but nurses of color,
Yes.
I just really, I think is so important. And so I just love that you were putting this out there. What has the reception been like?
It's been great. It has been really, really great. Whenever we go somewhere, whenever I take the book somewhere to do a book signing, we sell out. We sell out of books, we sell out of the dolls. I really, literally, I can't keep up. So, and I guess that's a good problem to have, but I just, for now, we're just trying to just navigate through the whole, COVID environment with getting shipments in and supplies in, making sure before we send out product to customers that, they're sanitary, we know they come from safe places, here in the US where the books are produced. But still, now Corona has given us that extra layer of caution. So, and delivery times have been impacted. Whereas before we would get books and supplies in within a week, now it takes about 6 weeks. So, we're not a big company, we're not out on shelves yet, but it's tough. So Corona has affected that line of revenue as well.
And have you had any little kids come up to you and say, you know what, because of this, I do want to be a nurse practitioner? Has
Oh
that
yeah.
happened yet?
Yes. I get parents who send me letters and tell me they want to be an NP. Some of the schools we have done the program at, they will call later or send me a letter later and say, hey, we've got kids talking about, certified registered nurse anesthetist. I didn't think they could say that word. I says, I didn't either. I can hardly say the word, So I said, you're telling me you have a sixth grader saying that? Oh my. So, well, you know what? My work is done. So yeah, we've gotten great feedback, and it's been an amazing experience. And I'm just, that's really where my heart is. Really, I'm just looking at, expanding it more and looking at where the future holds with that.
And so for these stories, you write them all and then work with an animator, or how does that work?
I do. I write them all, and I work with an illustrator, and I send him my story, and he just goes to work. It takes him. It's a rather lengthy process because even though I feel like I know I'm not his only client. So I can sometimes have to wait my turn, which I'm not so good at, but I have to wait until he can finish some of the pages for me. Like right now, we're working on one about peaceful protest. And so he has the story, and now I believe he's only on about page 6 or 7. Most of the stories run about 20 pages long or so. So we're trying, we're trying. So my goal is to have a book that is out, ready for sale at least every quarter. And I have the stories, and I tell everybody the running joke is, boy, if I could write and draw, look out, world. So I can only write, and I'm dependent on an illustrator. So it's basically I'm at his mercy. When he can get get the book finished, and that's when we go through the whole prepping process and get that book published.
And do you try and do timely topics? So you said the one you're working on now is peaceful protests. Are you thinking of one around like the pandemic, or how do you
Yes,
come up with your topics?
yes, good question. I do try to write about things that are going on. Like the latest one, of course, is the peaceful protest. But the series just prior to that was the Germy series. And there are 3 books in that series. The first book is out now, and it's Let's Talk About Germs. And it's a great book. We're excited about it. We've got a lot of feedback about it. We just had an elementary school teacher to contact me on Facebook just a couple of weeks ago, and she said, she found my book because she put in the search engine African American nurse. She was looking for books specifically for her demographic, her children who were in 3rd grade. And she said my entire line came up, and I was so thankful for keywords, right? And so she said she, got some of the books, and she, when in talking to her, I said, would it be cool if I just maybe came in and did a Zoom with the kids? She says, oh, but God, yes. So we couldn't get Zoom to work, so we did a FaceTime with the kids, and they were so precious. She was dressed up like a nurse, and the kids were there. They were excited. They had their mask on. They asked me questions. They were engaged. They said, I really didn't know anything about a nurse practitioner. Now I'm so excited about it. I'm excited to know that, there are higher levels of nursing. That's what one of them said. And I said, wow, so yes, the response has been great. And it's just, it just warms my heart that I feel like I'm training many nurses to eventually be, on the nursing force.
Again, it just shows the power of what nurses can do when you think about things outside of the clinical realm, right? Like you're writing this book, you're working with an illustrator, you're able to then translate that into this educational opportunity for these kids to now see how other areas of nursing and, like the kid said, a higher level of nursing.
Right. Yeah, she said it the right way, and she's in third grade. She didn't, know advanced practice. She said, higher level nurse. I was like, yes, that's it. That's, and so, my work is done because I said, I want to just create a buzz about nurse practitioners, CRNAs, midwives. I want them to be able to pick up a book and see, a character that looks like them. We have Bax the nurse, who represents the males. And, we have a Latina, there's Charo the CRNA, Maddie the midwife. And, and so we have one that represents, all shades that, really is a representation of America.
Why is this so important to you for people to see these advanced practice nursing roles?
Well, because we are on the front lines. Advanced practice nurses are on the front lines of healthcare. We are really making a difference. We're making an impact in 30 plus states right now. We have full practice authority where we can practice without restrictions of, physician oversight. That's pretty important. And so why not increase the ranks of these nurses who are providing very important care, particularly now with the coronavirus and the spikes. We're on the front lines. We're in these ICUs. We're in the emergency rooms. We're everywhere. We're on the front lines going into the hotbeds. I took a trip back in May to New York. We're in the epicenters. We're going there to help fight with the coronavirus. So I believe that our children should know and at least have an opportunity to decide between, do I want to be a nurse practitioner or, oh yeah, maybe a lawyer, maybe a physician, maybe a teacher. But now they can say a nurse practitioner. I think I can do that. And I want nurse practitioners to at least be in the running for an opportunity. They can't aspire to be something they don't see.
Well, you are an incredible advocate for advanced practice nurses. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
If folks wanted to check out the NOLA the Nurse series, where would they find it?
So most of the series, in fact, all of the series is on Amazon. It's on Barnes & Noble. We are online at Walmart and Target. And of course, the website, nolathenurse.com. You can find all of the books there. But I have a little disclaimer at the top that says shipments may take between 6 to 8 weeks. So just, we've had people to still purchase and say, look, we want them because it's coming directly from me. And then you can have the option of having the books autographed as well if you purchase them directly from nolathenurse.com. I've had other people who purchase them from Amazon and they just ship them to me and I ship them back and, I'll write the note in that whatever works. But those are the main places where you can find NOLA the Nurse products.
Well, Dr. Lawson, thank you so much for talking with us. I really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
Hello, Marion.
Hey, Angela. How you doing?
I'm amazing. How are you?
Couldn't be better.
So we just had a fantastic conversation with Scharmaine Lawson.
Yes, Dr. Scharmaine Lawson. Let me tell you, I love when nurses use different mediums and their creativity to promote the profession. How cool is it that she created this animated series? And actually, nope, not animated. I learned something new today. Love when I learn something new. Illustrated. I kept saying animated. She kept saying illustrated. The illustrated series, Nola the Nurse.
Yeah. She's a ball of creative energy, actually, when you consider that she, is a nurse practitioner, went back to New Orleans, got there right after Katrina and started doing all kinds of creative stuff in order to take care of people in the aftermath of Katrina, which was the beginning of her creative process, which just led into, more creative process, one right after the other.
Yeah, nurses as entrepreneurs, man, we can't be stopped, right? She has her own house call business. She has her own business to train other providers to start house call businesses. And she has the illustrated series. Pretty remarkable.
Yeah, she is really remarkable. Amplify Nursing is hosted by Dr. Angela Rosa DiDonato and Marion Leary, and produced by the University of Pennsylvania School of Nursing, with special thanks to our Department of Information Technology Services for their assistance. Music for the podcast was created by Harper Leary. The podcast is made possible by the Krista and Rich Pinola Fund for Innovation in Nursing.
Follow us on Twitter at Penn Nursing. Until next time, keep pushing over, under, around, and through. We want to thank you for listening to the Amplify Nursing podcast and remind you to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you enjoy your podcast listening. And if you can do us a solid, please rate and review us as well. It will go a long way in amplifying our episodes.